Good morning and welcome to Coffee and the Word. So we've been looking at the exodus of the children of Israel from Egypt, from bondage, in which their situation was so bad that they were crying out to God. They did not like the situation they were in, and they wanted out. They wanted deliverance. They wanted to be set free. They wanted to experience what it was like to be their own people and to go on about their own business. And so God sends Moses to them, and God delivers them from the hands of the Egyptians. It's a really cool story, right? Like, God sends Moses in, God delivers them. As they're leaving, Pharaoh chases them. God leads them by a cloud, a pillar of a cloud by day, and a pillar of fire by night. God confuses the armies, and then he puts the armies to death in the Red Sea, and so they're on the other side. And I'm telling you, by now these people should be like, whatever's going to happen next, God's got this, right? God's got this. This is all going to be okay. God is working things out. God is everything God is using for our good, right? Like, God is going to make things happen. And so I would love to tell you that what the children of Israel did is when they would run into a hardship or a problem, they just went and said, God, I know you're going to take care of this. We just want you to know our needs. Well, that's not really what happens. In fact, in chapter 16, the whole Israelite community set out from Elim and came to the desert of Sin, which is between Elim and Sinai. On the 15th day of the second month after they had come out of Egypt, in the desert, the whole community grumbled against Moses and Aaron. The Israelites said to them, if only we had died by the Lord's hand in Egypt. There we sat around pots of meat and ate all the food we wanted, but you have brought us out into the desert to starve this entire assembly to death. Do you remember the last time their complaint was, you have brought us out here to die because there weren't enough graves? I'm telling you, the Israelites are prone to the melodramatic, and so are we, I'm afraid. I think it's very easy for us to not take note of all that God has provided, all of the deliverance God has given us, all of the freedoms God has ushered in for us, all of the provisions God has blessed us with. It's so easy for us to become so unbelievably focused on our momentary reality that we miss just how much God has done. In fact, before I go any further, I would highly recommend that if you're somebody who's prone to think that God has abandoned you at every turn, that you should keep a diary or a journal, and you should write down the many times God has delivered you, because I'm telling you, God is providing in ways you can't even imagine. And Jesus tells us that we're not to worry about what we're going to eat or what we're going to drink, because even the birds God takes care of. And aren't you much more valuable than they? And so the children of Israel have come to Moses, and again, they're prone to the melodramatic. You brought us out here to die. At least in Egypt we had stuff to eat. I mean, we were slaves and it was terrible and we wanted out, but now we want back. And I'm afraid that's what happens to a lot of us. Is our immediate hardship or our momentary hardship causes us to want to go back to something that isn't, that at one time we despised. You know, if you'd have asked them, or if you'd have told them, hey, on this journey out to this new promised land, there are going to be times when you're going to be hungry, but God will provide. There are going to be times when you're going to be thirsty, but God will provide. There are going to be times when it's dangerous, but God will protect. Had you told them this, they'd have been like, we're in. I don't care. I just want out. And then when they get in it, they say, I don't understand it. You just brought us out here to die. And so anyway, the Lord said to Moses, I will rain down bread from heaven for you. The people will go out each day and gather enough for that day. In this way, I will test them and see whether they will follow my instructions. On the sixth day, they are to prepare what they bring in, and that is to be twice as much as they gather on the other days. In other words, I'm going to provide food on the daily. You know what he's basically saying is, I'm going to require these people to trust me, that tomorrow your provisions will be there. And that's one of the things that I think we struggle with, right? Is we know the Lord will provide, while we're eating his provisions, but we want to store something away for ourselves. We don't want to wait for tomorrow's provisions. We want to hoard provisions so that tomorrow there's more. And so God says, I'm going to test them in this. I'm not going to let them keep anything. I'm not going to let them. In fact, every day they will have to gather their bread, and every day they'll have to gather their meat. And so what's interesting is they don't believe him. So what they do is they start hoarding. And it's funny because when they do that, everything that they'd stored is covered in maggots and isn't edible. And yet God provides every day. Every day God provided for them. And every day God will provide for you. And so here's my encouragement to you today. Trust in the provisions of God. I know that there are a lot of people going through a lot of stuff, but I know that God's doing a lot of stuff to provide for those people who are going through it. And don't think for a second God doesn't see you, that God doesn't hear you, and that God isn't working things out for you. Worry is a lack of trust. Trust is a beautiful thing, and God will provide. And I hope you'll lean on that. I hope you'll recognize all the ways God's already provided for you, and you'll lean on that and know that there will be new mercies every morning. There will be new provisions every morning. Anyway, I think if we're fair and honest, when we study the story of the Israelites, we find them to be a little spoiled and a little entitled and a lot grumbly. Don't be like the Israelites. Trust in the Lord your God with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. He will provide for you. He's promised that. And I believe his promises. Anyway, hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. God bless you. This has been another edition of Coffee and the Word.